Hello, everyone, and I hope you're having a good day and a good year, and it's good to be back. I just decided to stop overthinking about what I want to do next. And right now, I am working on a video, but at this moment, I wanted to just take this time and talk about one of my favorite, well, actually, my personal favorite show of all time, Breaking Bad. I'll get to Better Call Saul in a second and someday, but right now I just want to talk about my favorite show, period. And the thing about this show is that when the thing about the show that it makes it my all-time favorite is mostly the characters, obviously, but how it actually changed the way how I view entertainment as a whole. Because I gotta tell you, there was a time when I would never watch drama because drama used to bore me a lot. Um, I mean, I did not find good The Godfather entertaining when I was growing up. I didn't find a lot of these crime dramas that my mom watches as entertaining, and I'm not saying that I've watched them today, but maybe one day I will watch them. And I but then when this series was getting usually it's the internet memes back in the day that would actually get me into a TV show or a movie or basically anything for that matter. But yeah, it was this show that was getting um the most uh retweets, the most um clicks on Google, the most searches, the most memes, the most references, the most everything at that time. And I decided to just finally give it a whirl and just see what the show is like and what it's all about. And I kid you not, there's no way I on earth I could ever make this up. I saw this show first time in my life on Netflix on my 3DS. I kid you not. This, oh jeez, that should tell you how long I've actually touched this. This device alone with Netflix was my introduction. Was basically my first time ever seeing anything from Breaking Bad, and I can't remember what the quality was like back then on the 3DS. Um, but yeah, that was just thinking about it. It's just hilarious we how we went from how I went from watching stuff on Netflix on my 3DS all the way down to my phone, all the way down to my smart TV, all the way down to my phone that I'm using right now for this footage. But yeah, the one thing that interested me the most was just how the shows how the show was structured, like in every episode with like cold openings and all that stuff. Back then, for the longest time, I didn't know what a cold opening was. Uh, I didn't know what it was by name. I knew what actually I should rephrase that. I knew what a cold opening was. I just didn't know what it is by name. And just seeing, I mean, geez, it's like it got me prepared as to what this show is about. Right when I saw Bryan Cranston just doing his outward performance, like seeing how he's just this nerdy, college, like high school chemistry teacher who is just so bored with his job that and so stuck with him doing all two jobs and just seeing him throwing a huge fit against Bogdan, well, more specifically Bogdan's eyebrows, and just and it was also one of the first shows I've ever seen where vulgarity is not censored. So you can imagine how blown away I was with this show. Just what the show did that I didn't see beforehand. You know? You know what I mean? Like I didn't watch HBO. I didn't have HBO back in the time because my parents always hated HBO back in the day. They probably still, I mean, nowadays with HBO Max or whatever the streaming service is called, it's a different story, obviously. But no, I didn't have any programs where I didn't have any cable channels that would have TV shows where they don't censor the f bombs. This one, this one in particular, it was on AMC, and they did not censor the first ever f bomb in that show. So, as you can imagine, I was already blown away by how much uh, how much different this is compared to the regular TV shows that I watched beforehand. Because yeah, I did watch a lot of Adult Swim. I did watch a lot of Aqua Teen Hunger Force, but the vulgarity is always censored. So it was on Comedy Central as well. Hey, for crying out loud, Comedy Central. I mean, it's like the BBC. BBC can show you like the flip book that 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 Nicholas Angel was shown in Hot Fuzz with like the police officer shooting down a cop to death, where you see like his head burst and blood and all that stuff. But Comedy Central wouldn't show that for some reason, and I still don't get it. However, um, and you know what? Even around that time, I was watching The Walking Dead, and they couldn't even throw in a single f bomb. And I'm not saying that using bad words is what makes a TV show great, but I am saying just how different and impressive and blown away I was just to seeing um the show breaking the limitations as to what the jeez, I forgot the name of the association that censored. Oh yeah, the FCC can how it can get away with whatever the FCC usually blocks at the time. I don't know what it is today, but still. Yeah, so just and I did not know that the show had something to do with meth at the time when I first saw this. I was just that just came out of left field for me. I was just like, meth? Really? You get what I mean? It was just crazy just to see that this show revolves around drugs and the main character just makes stuff that people would literally die from. And then Jesse Pinkman comes in, and I gotta admit, he is the first character I've seen in forever at the time where he's just like every high schooler I'd known before this show and during the show and even after the show came out. You know, he was just like so relatable as to how he performed, how he acted out, how how realistic he was in this kind of world. Even though he kept using, because you guys know I'm not using the words out loud. It's only because I don't like using vulgarity. But just hearing him use the B word all the time is kind of hilarious, especially how he does it. And just it really does showcase the stupidity of his character, but it does also showcase. But I think that stupidity is what shows us the charm behind Jesse. You get what I mean? Like if you didn't have him act the way he did, then how are you gonna like connect with him? How are you gonna understand Jesse Pinkman? And that's basically what it took out of him. And the longer in this part, sorry, yeah, yeah. And as the show progressed, as the show like went on, he actually grew into a much better, much smarter, much capable character than he did from the very start, which is the kind of character growth that I like. And then also you have Walter White, who just continues to progress as he becomes this monster you see all the way up to the final episode of the series. Then you have his situation with cancer, which I always found pretty interesting how a show would deal with the subject matter of cancer patients, those and the subject around it as well. Especially like the impact that it has had towards those who have cancer. I mean, one of the biggest fans who used to one of the biggest fans was a cancer patient, and he wasn't even an adult yet, and he loved this show so much that one of the requests that he gave to Vince Gilligan before he died was on the final episode where he was asking, um, how do you deal with Gretchen and Elliot Schwartz? Like, can you show us a conclusion with those two characters? And by the way, I know I'm skipping around a lot, but I know I'm just telling you my thoughts about this show without telling you the story. So, yeah, I'm going to be jumping around here and there. I'm not going to be fixated on one topic after another. So, sorry about that. Sorry for letting you know this late in the game. So, yeah, basically, what the show is about is Walter White wanting to just finally, well, lack for better words, break bad, as what Jesse Pinkman said in the first episode, by cooking crystal meth. That way, he could actually raise enough money for his cancer, as well as raising more money for his family when he goes on with his life. Um, and his his brother-in-law Hank Schrader, is just this. He's a DEA agent who is also looking so hard into this case to the point where it just becomes like a massive addiction to him. And and Jesse Pinkman is also Walter White's partner, who was also a high school his one of his high school students, um, in the place that he worked in. And he was sorry, Jesse Pinkman joins up with him, who was a former student in his chemistry class back in a few years before the show takes place. And basically these two characters, both Jesse and Walt, they just try to play cat and mouse with the DEA agents, as well as try to sell their meth with a bunch of drug dealers, and it basically makes the criminal world look more interesting that way. Like the, I mean, just these drug dealers who are just a bunch of crazed out um, psychopaths. Like you have Crazy Eight on the beginning of this show, who you just see with a rabid dog, and he was about to kill Walter White, just threatening his life until Walter White just kills him with a bike chain underneath inside of Jesse Pinkman's house. And then they go towards Tuco, who, oh man, Tuco is my favorite bad guy of all time. Just seeing how unpredictable, how sporadic, how insane this guy gets. I mean, it's amazing the powerhouse that Raymond Cruz has actually put into this character. I mean, it's just nuts. So nuts, in fact, that that episode in Crazy Handful of Nothing, where he beats up Jesse Pinkman, was so realistic that Aaron Paul was knocked out of conscience. I mean, that's just nuts. I mean, you would never see that today in anything or anywhere else. And if you did, it would just make the news. But for this moment in the other hand, I mean, Jesse, just seeing Aaron Paul as Jesse Pinkman literally get knocked out of conscience, and seeing all those bruise on his stomach was just like real. How realistic that, how real that was, and the fact that it was real. is mind blowing. And then later on, you get to see as the show progresses after Tuco dies. Sorry, spoilers. You just see them try to do business their own, and which led them to meet Saul Goodman, and then have then him just giving both Jesse and Walt some help from Gus Fring. You know what? Actually, think about it. Now I'm thinking about it. I don't know who I like best as the villain, Tuco or Gus. Sometimes I always like to look towards Gus as the best villain in the show. But sometimes I like to look at Tuco as the best villain in the show. Maybe it's because I like crazy, unhinged villains, as well as like how sometimes they be calculative and how they act like they have power and stuff. I think that's kind of why I lean towards Tuco. Well, and but Gus, on the other hand, has this calculative, mad genius type of um, character personification. Just like the way how he handles the cartel on his own, along with Mike, who I get to later on. It's just amazing to me to see a character like that, where he doesn't have to act like a crazed maniac. He just acts like a murderer slash drug dealer in a very calm businessman type of mentality. But yeah, that helps from Saul Goodman. Now, Saul Goodman, I did not expect that type of character to be in the show, to be honest with you. Um, he just kind of came out of nowhere for me. So, and this is before the show ended, so I didn't see any teasers or trailers for Better Call Saul. I basically marathon Breaking Bad before the show ended, and just seeing just seeing Bob Odenkirk as Saul Goodman was also something that I believe the show needs, because the show, yeah, it can be funny at times. I mean, even Dean Norris, aka Hank Schrader, did say in Conan O'Brien, did tell the Conan O'Brien that, yeah, Breaking Bad in a way is kind of a comedy, and and I actually see that. I can actually understand that, as well as Vince Gilligan's approach on getting to work on comedic actors, comedians to work on a show. That's the thing that blew me away about seeing Bryan Cranston in this series, is that he can do drama. I mean, most of us before the show started knew him from Malcolm in the Middle, which see if I have it right. Yeah, yeah. Here we go. Yeah, most of us kind of just like knew him from Malcolm in the Middle. Yeah, I'm going to be throwing a bunch of stuff over here as well as I go on. I mean, we didn't really know that he actually had range. And geez, if you want to see what I'm staring at, yeah, that's right in front of me. uh, yeah, it's crazy to me that he can actually do all of this just years before we knew he can do drama. And Vince Gilligan's point as to why he hired Bryan Cranston, Bob Odenkirk, Bill Burr, these comedic actors to be in the show, is that he said that in order for you to do comedy, you have to learn how to do drama first. As a matter of fact, that's how Robin Williams got his start. He was doing drama before he did comedy, before he did stand up. And you can just see Robin Williams in a bunch of dramas and just get to know what kind of a tour de force he was. And many people who grew up in the 90s, who grew up with Robin Williams, loved his dramas, loved Dead Poet Society, love um, Patch Adams. Well, okay, not that many people love Patch Adams, but you get my point as to what I'm trying to say. You know, of how comedians can do drama, and this show was my stepping stone, my introduction to figuring that out. You know, just I also like how uh, I just like how it shows just how much um, just how much talent comedians have. That's one of the reasons for why Jim Carrey is one of my favorite actors of all time. You know, you can see him do a lot of comedies that we know and love, but when you see him do drama, it's like you're learning something new about him. You're learning something that you've never seen from him before, especially when you watch something from like the likes of. Let's see if it's here. Yeah. I know I don't have to do this. I just wanna. All right. Ah, here it is. Yes, especially when you have the likes of one of my favorite movies of all time, Truman Show, and just seeing how Jim Carrey um, can act in that movie as both a comedian going into drama, it was just wonderful. And I believe this movie is what made Jim Carrey want to do drama. Because right after that, he soon did Man on the Moon. So, yeah, that's my point on seeing comedic actors, comedians do drama. And Breaking Bad actually broke that rule. Yeah, so yeah, that's kind of my takeaway on that whole subject. And by the way, I didn't know this, but until very later on, but Bryan Cranston, this was not. I totally forgot. This was not his first time that he did drama. The first time he did drama was in the X Files, which I don't have. But I know that Vince Gilligan actually did work with Bryan Cranston in a couple of episodes in the X Files as a producer, I believe, and a director. And and if you want to actually a very good Easter egg in Better Call Saul, that date number, October the 13th, in the very first episode with those college students decapitating and making love with that head, that date number, October the 13th, is Chris Carter's birthday. So, hope you enjoyed that part. Because, yeah, I don't know what I was going to say about that. But yeah, so that's actually Vince Gilligan's first time ever going to Bryan Cranston for some work. But Bryan Cranston was not the first choice to play as Walter White, if you could believe that. Most people actually know this, but for those of you who don't know, uh, one of the first choices that Vince Gilligan had for Walter White was Matthew Broderick, and no, I can't see him at all playing as Walter White. I just can't, like, not ever. So I'm glad that Bryan Cranston was picked, especially for the fact that he was trying to pick low profile actors, and especially those who he has never, those that we have never heard or don't really think about. Like, for example, Raymond Cruz, he was in Alien Resurrection. He was he was basically one of the minor characters of that crew who broke into that ship, and so he didn't really do that many prominent roles before Breaking Bad, and the only prominent role that Bryan Cranston had was just Hell in Malcolm in the Middle, as well as doing voice actor work for Macross Plus, which is an anime I don't have. Yeah, I'm gonna get to that one of these days. But yes, so so yeah, the casting has always been amazing. The story has always been amazing to me. Just seeing how far the show can go has always been one of the best trips of my life ever. One of the best experiences I in my life ever watching a show, especially with like the camera work. Oh man, I have to talk about the camera work. Um, with the POV shots, just seeing how much you can do with a POV shot is incredible to me. It's just seeing the POV shot on the tip of the spade of a shovel in Cornered, or what other good POV shots that I could point out? Or just seeing the POV shot of that bullet hole on a car, and it's like seeing how the reflection comes off of it is truly remarkable. My probably favorite uh, my favorite camera work, my favorite shot of cinematography in this show has to be in in that train heist episode. I can't remember the name of it. I remember it as episode 5. Just seeing them try to figure out where they want to position their tanker full of water, and seeing what's around that vicinity, and then seeing the sunset on the background is just incredible. I mean, the colors that you see within that scene was remarkable. And then also you have the shot where Jesse is waiting for the vacuum repair guy, just waiting for him to come. Just that standstill shot of Jesse waiting at a faraway distance was amazing. And even the first episode with the cold opening with the sunrise or the sunset um, in Tolhajali, it was remarkable. I mean, it's a beautiful work of art. And even the part where Walter and Jesse in the third episode of season 2, Bit by Dead Bee, just seeing the overview standstill camera shots of Walt and Jesse on the ground walking in the desert was also remarkable because of the colors. And you know what? I'm glad that for someone who was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, I am glad that they decided not to shoot the show over there and shoot in New Mexico, because New Mexico, this show proves that New Mexico has a lot of great vicinities, a lot of beautiful landscapes, and the color just pops perfectly. This and I am so at the same time I'm so jealous that Albuquerque became kind of a huge tourist site for this show. And I still want to visit all these landmarks, all these um, locations where they shot the show. I still want to visit the White Residence. I still want to visit Los Boyos Hermanos. I still want to visit the car wash, which I know is now treated as like a mini museum for this show. I just want to see it all. I want to be there. I want to walk into these places. I want to touch these places. And I even want to just see that bronze statue that they put in the train station over there in Albuquerque. It, I mean, my goodness, they really did put more into the name of the land of enchantment. I mean, they put more of definition and more of a meaning of enchantment within the land of enchantment, and it's just it makes New Mexico look like a place I want to visit. So, and as for the ending to this show, it was kind of spoiled to me in some kind of, well, actually it wasn't spoiled, but I spoiled my brother by not being as detailed, because after the show ended, a guy I remember a guy told me that Vince Gilligan wanted the show to end like how Scarface ended. And yeah, I can see that. It works. So, so in the ending, many people, I didn't know that many people were disappointed about the show ending the way it did. Uh, specifically where Walter White died on the end. Uh, but I think it was fitting. I think that the place where he was at in a meth lab um, was actually a pretty good way how to end the show. You know, the show began with him cooking meth instead of a. I mean, his RV was a meth lab. That was the first place we saw him in. We first saw him in a meth lab, and we last see him in a meth lab. And I just love that connection between those. I just love that connection that we got within those two shots of Walter White, and and I love how Vince Gilligan would think this stuff through. It shows you just how much care and passion he has for storytelling, writing. Then you have and then you have like Jesse Pinkman, just seeing how destroyed and tormented he was at the very last few episodes is it was just kind of a shocker to me because I have never seen a character go through like what he did. And I know I'm skipping ahead, so let me explain. Um, After they blow up um, Gus Fring in his meth lab, they just had to find a new place to cook meth. So they use they use an extermination like a bug extermination business to actually plant all these meth labs in like other people's houses inside of these tents, and which is where they meet a an employee who whose uncle is like a Nazi, and his uncle captures Jesse to cook more meth after Walter White gets caught, and then has to run away from the DEA and all the federal government, and goes into hiding. And then you see Jesse Pinkman. He's been working with these Nazi gangs, this Nazi gang, and just cooking meth for them as a slave, as like an animal in a cage, and then just seeing him drive away in his freedom instead of an El Camino, it was really a sign of relief. It was a sign of yes, and it was just it's just like that great perfect ending to a truly perfect TV show. Now, what is my favorite episode in the show? Yeah, let's talk about that. Oh, so yeah, let's talk about my favorite episode in Breaking Bad. And actually, I got two. Oh man, I still can't decide which one I like better, but we'll stick with the one that I always thought was the best episode in the show. That is Fly. Now, the reason for why I like Fly, well, let me tell you what the episode is about. Basically, as they're cooking inside of Gus's underground meth lab, which is underneath a laundromat, the Walter discovers a fly that flies inside of the facility, and he has to swat it. He says he can't continue to cook unless this fly is dead because there can't be any contamination. And Jesse Pinkman, he keeps hearing this over and over again. He's just like, this is just ridiculous. It's just a fly. He just wants to get cooking again and just forget about the fly. Just deal with it. And it's just like Walter and Jesse. They're trying to capture it. They're just trying to kill this fly. And in the end, Jesse does swat it as Walter White falls asleep because Jesse puts sleeping pills inside of his coffee because he just wants Walter to just shut up and just get back to and for Jesse to just get back to work. However, Jesse just discovers that he didn't need to do that at all. And 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 the thing that I love about this episode that makes it work is that it's very quiet. It's very calm and relaxing. Um, it doesn't try too hard. It doesn't try too little either. It was just concentrated on just more character development, more character growth. Actually, the same thing on just both Jesse and Walter, just talking to each other, bickering against each other, just explaining about life, the universe, and everything. Like the part where Walter was just explaining about how so many things can come together spontaneously. Like for example, in season two, um, Jesse Jesse's landlady became his girlfriend, who would just like get Jesse into heroin after a while. And then her father figures out that she has heroin, and and says that actually it's not funny, and just gets her, and she's going to go into rehab the next day, and then all of a sudden her dad is in the same bar with Walter White. They did not know each other and they'd never seen their faces before, but they're just talking about family. And Walter uses that as an example of like how everything comes together in this universe spontaneously, and how unlikely the chances between him and Jesse's girlfriend was Mary Jane. That's her name, and how both of them. I'm just gonna call her dad John Delancey because that's who was playing as her dad. So yeah, Walter just like talking about the chances of him meeting John Delancey inside of that bar. Shit, it was like a 1 in a million chance. Who would later on create a plane crash after his daughter died of an overdose? Is as a flight as a air controller, and it's just him saying this while he's falling asleep and struggling to stay awake because of sleeping pills. And then Jesse was talking about a possum that was stuck inside of his house. And I mean, I know it sounds boring, but guys, trust me, this episode is actually amazing. It's just like you just watch two guys talk to each other, not doing too much, and it's just relaxing. It's like a breath of fresh air to see and feel and experience rather than just seeing the TV show that can get so explosive and just so out of control from time to time and how unpredictable it can be. You know, it just wants you to feel and see what these people are feeling and what they're going through. And I like that kind of stuff where you're just nestled in your blanket sitting on the couch while the lights are dimmed out, and it's just you and a TV screen. And I like that about Fly a lot. Now another episode that that I really like um, is Ozymandias. Now let me give you a quick summary as to how this episode came to be. Basically, in the second half of season 5, which is the final season, Hank discovers that Walter is Heisenberg, and there's a point where Jesse does team up with Hank just to take down Walter White, and Jesse actually lures him in the same spot where they first cooked meth, just to find Walter's money that he buried, which he said it was over $80 million that he hid and buried. Then, then as Hank actually catches up to him, you have the Nazi gang find um, find Walter, find Hank, and these Nazis just shoots down both Steve Gomez and Hank, which ends at a cliffhanger. By the way, the name of the guy who Walter contacts, who he first talks to about this, was Todd, and his uncle is Jack, who leads this Nazi gang, who just like shoots down both Steve Gomez and Hank. Steve Gomez being Hank's partner, and just seeing how Ozymandias starts with the cold opening of Walter first cooking meth in the RV and talking to his wife Skylar, trying to make up excuses as to why he wouldn't show up early over at his house because he's making up lies saying that Bogdan has him uh, over at work for like overtime and all that stuff. And then Skylar is like telling Walter about a better baby name instead of Renesmee or Esmeralda. She's like, what about Holly? He's like, yeah, that's starting to grow on me. I actually like that. And as for that, and because of that, well, and they stuck with that with their new baby name. And then all of a sudden, you see, I don't know what, I think it was Walter White who fades away. Then you see Jesse who fades away. And then you see the RV just fades away, showing how everything that you saw in the first episode just ceases to exist. Like what was fun and entertaining is now gone. What you knew about the show is done for. Now they go to the title screen, the intro, the that. Um, then all of a sudden you see the shootout, and Hank is nearing his death. He's on the ground. He's been shot and wounded. Jack comes up. He's about to shoot him, but Walter tries to stop him, saying that he's family. And Jack was like, well, if you told me that this is family, then this all would have been turned out very differently. But can't have him alive. And he's trying to plead with Jack. Walter was trying to plead with Jack. And then all of a sudden, Hank, laying on the ground, wounded, saying that you're the smartest man I know, and you're too stupid to tell that he's made up his mind a long time ago. And Jack sees that, and he shoots him dead in the face, on the head. And Jack Welker was was taking all of his money that's buried underground and, well, except for one barrel of money, of cash. I believe it was $9 million, if I can remember correctly. He gives that to Walter White because, and he was going to let White live freely because Walter gave up Jesse, who was hiding underneath Walter's car. And Jesse would there and then become Jack Welker's slave for meth. And then he was left alone driving back home. But his gas tank has a hole, so he ends up rolling that barrel in the desert. You see his brown khakis that fell from the sky and landed on the ground from the first episode, just buried in dirt. Goes to a ranch that was owned by a Native American. He wanted to, and bought this guy's truck, his pickup truck. Um, then all of a sudden, Marie, Hank's wife, tells not only Skylar everything about what happened, but also tells their son, Walt Jr., who would now be named as Flynn uh, permanently, about the whole meth cooking. Then all of a sudden, they see Walter in their house, packing up bags, trying to disappear, have new lives. But they can't get over the fact that Walter killed Hank. And then comes into a knife fight between Walter and Skylar. And then that caused Walter to just drive away in pure anger, frustration, fear, to the point where he has his own daughter that he took with him. And then the dreaded phone call that he had between Walter, that Walter had with his wife on the phone, with the police behind her, which is so painful that it's really impressive at the same that it's also impressive at the same time with the acting caliber between Bryan Cranston and Anna Gunn in front of the camera. Just like just like Walter telling what Skylar about, oh, why do you tell anyone about what I do? Didn't I tell you to keep your mouth shut throughout that whole time? And but he saw that he couldn't take his daughter Holly with him. So he leaves Holly inside of a fire truck in a fire station, in a firehouse, with the address to take her back home. Then Walter finds the vacuum repair guy. No, the vacuum repair guy finds him, excuse me, and just drives away. Just seeing seeing these two episodes is remarkable, especially how both of them are the most highly rated episodes in television history, and they're both directed by Rian Johnson, who is, yeah, if Disney knew about his strengths and weaknesses before trying to cast him to direct The Last Jedi, then I think that we could have averted a huge problem with that movie, which is the movie itself. Um, and I did try to watch Glass Onion, and that movie was. I think it's. When it comes to the actors and the characters, I think that movie is worse than The Last Jedi. But overall, enough of that. Um, I'm just saying that what he directed in Breaking Bad is just remarkable with those two episodes, and I congratulate him for it. And so, yeah, that's basically my thoughts on Breaking Bad. Um, if you guys like this, I will I will continue. I will actually continue on to make my thoughts on my favorite movies and TV shows. And who knows? Maybe I will talk about. I mean, I am planning to talk about Better Call Saul, but maybe I'll talk about Milk in the Middle after, or maybe The Truman Show after. Either way, um, if you like what you see here, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you next time. Take care.